Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Julie's Orchids. Nina over at Ninja Orchid has put a call out for the care collabers again, and today's episode is a care collab on the general care of Zygopetalums. Not one plant in particular, but Zygopetalums in general. So the other channels participating today are Plants and Other Things, Michelle's Life on Repeat, Attainable Green, Orchids and Fynbos, Trish's Orchid Life, Roger's Orchids, Fernanda Nascimento Orchids and Succulents, Beauty of Orchids and Plants, Orchids 365, Annavoeg Gia, Ynse Schaap and ADD, HIllBilly Orchids, and of course, the lovely Nina over at Ninja Orchids. And today we're having a look at my 4 Zygopetalums. Now I do have to admit that when Nina first put the call out, I only had one plant, and that's the one in the middle. And then I did some swapping through Facebook Marketplace here in Western Australia, and I got the 2 little seedlings that are recently deflasked 4 months ago in exchange for 2 of my little seedlings that I've just deflasked. So it was a straight up swap there. And the big monster in the back, that's a species. You know, on my channel, I like to have at least one species for every genre of plant that I own. And that one is Zygo macii, rather now referred to as Zygo maculatum, which is a bit confusing because Zygo macii was discovered in the 1870s and Zygo maculatum was discovered in the 1970s. Any rate, not real sure about what's going on there, but according to my internet research, Zygo macii is now Zygo maculatum, and it is from Brazil. So most Zygopetalums, of which there are 14 recognized species, are from Brazil or South America. They're from humid forests with low to mid elevations. They are said to be cool growing, liking bright indirect light or bright shade, depending on which website you look at. They like temperatures from daytime temps 29 to 32 C or mid 80s to 90s Fahrenheit, and at night they like to get down to 15 to 18 C or 55, 60 Fahrenheit. They're supposed to be watered when almost dry, and they evidently go a bit dormant, so when they're in dormancy and are not actively growing, do not fertilize them. But according to research on the internet that I've done, they suggest fertilizing as you would normally, once monthly. This is where I'm going to have a stop here and say know your Zygopetalum, whereas most of them are epiphytes, epiphytic. There evidently are some that are terrestrial, so get to know your Zygo. So let's get to know my Zygo. Zygo macii, as I mentioned, it is now referenced as maculatum, is from Brazil. This one is considered to be tough as nails and darn near impossible to kill. I got this one from Facebook Marketplace here in Perth, and the grower was 137 kilometers from me, and it was a nice drive on a beautiful day on down to see him and got that lovely plant, which he has told me he was repotting. The main plant was so big that when he got it out of the pot, that chunk broke off. So he's repotted that chunk from his other plant, and that other plant was huge. And this one is now putting up 2 new growths. I don't know if you can see them peeking out right there. 2 new growths, so that's not too shabby. I have not repotted this one as of yet. as well as the little tiny seedlings I got. The lady that I traded these through on Facebook Marketplace was 147 kilometers away, but Big Zygo was on the way there. So I had a very nice country cruise on a beautiful, bright, sunshiny, cool day. I got to drive through the wheat belt and see all sorts of cattle. I saw camels. Unfortunately, I was driving, so I could not film the camels, but there was some camels, which shocked me. These were domesticated camels. I always thought the camels in Western Australia were further up north, but these were to the east, towards the middle, away from the ocean. And they were just grazing along in someone's paddock next to some dairy cattle. So the two little baby ones, I'm going to put the phone down and we'll go over the three smaller plants where we can get them better seen. Because the monstrous Zygo there, I don't know where I'm going to put that, to be perfectly frank with you. It's huge. I'll film the repotting of it. I'm going to give it, probably do it Wednesday. There are new growths coming up, so I'm feeling pretty confident that thing is huge. The pseudobulbs are the size of my fist. They're, I would say, a lemon, a good size big lemon. That's how big those pseudobulbs are on that thing. So I didn't realize how big it was when I agreed to purchase it. Okay, there goes Joey. And she's going to have a sniff. Joey. Joey, Joey. So let's get set up to look at the smaller ones. So this is the first Zygo in my collection, and that is its name. I have it planted in the PET method, mostly because when I got it, I didn't have a pot to put it in, so I thought I'd give it a go. I bought this from one of the Orchid Society members. She grows it in her shade cloth, under shade cloth in her back garden that has a lot of trees, and she has a little brook, and she lives about an hour and a half from here, and the climates do vary quite a lot between 1 or 2 hours away from where I'm at. It can become scorchingly bitterly even hotter than here, or quite moist and humid to actually chilly and areas of freezing. So this is an interesting state that I live in. So back to this one. I got this one about 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. The lady said it was a keiki, that the plant created a keiki, which she thought was weird and was worried it was going to die. And she grew that little bulb right there. You can see some bugs got it at her place. I've treated it. I'm not sure what those spots are. But it did have some bugs, and when I got it home, she had had it planted in coconut husk, and I don't think she cleaned the coconut husk right, because the first time I watered it, the water, I let it have a soak. The water came very, very, very strong black tea. And then I noticed some creepy crawlies while I had it in isolation, and I thought, no, we're just going to repot it, because it was grown outside, and I got it at late spring, which means the bugs had been out, and you can see the damage it's gotten on some of these leaves. But I've grown this one on. It's grown this leaf, and is now growing that one since I've had it. And I have it planted in basically river rock from the local hardware store Bunnings with a layer of medium pine bark, and then a mixture of small pine bark and my horticultural perlite vermiculite. And there's a bead or two of slow release fertilizer and a pellet of orchid strike back, which is seaweed with cow and mag. And that is my first orchid. And now we're going to get to some interesting Zygopetalum hybrids. And from what I can see, these things are all sorts of crazy mixes. So I had to do quite a bit of internet research on what some of these are. Now, these were the ones that I traded my seedling by deflasked Philippinensis and Valina for these. These were deflasked by the lady I made the trade with 4 months ago, and she has been growing them in her home for 4 months. Now, she had these potted in what to me looked like coconut husk and peat moss, which might have worked for her in her growing conditions. And because I had to drive home 147 kilometers, and I did mention that there was cattle and there was camels. There was also a fox. I didn't realize we had foxes here, but there are feral foxes here. And unfortunately, a feral fox darted out in front of the car and had to swerve to keep from hitting said fox. And these kind of toppled over in the car. As you can see, they're dirty. I didn't want to brush them around too bad, but there's a bit of the dirt, peat moss, I think. You can see it right there, sort of stuck on them. I didn't want to just really actively try to brush everything off because these poor little guys took a header in the car thanks to a fox. So I pulled over and immediately kind of put everything back together as quickly as I could get slowed down. The speed limit in the area I was driving on, the 2-lane blacktop country road, was 110 Ks. So I did a pretty nice swerve around the fox at 110 Ks and did not hit the fox, didn't want to hit the fox. It looked like a fairly big fox. I'm sure the fox would have fared much worse than my car, and fortunately it was not one of the big western gray kangaroos, because when you hit one of those, they win. Even if they die, they win. They just are massive and can get up to 6 foot tall. And yeah, so thank God it was just a fox. But the poor little babies took a tumble. So I got them home, and then I decided to repot them because I know that in my growing climate here, particularly now that things are back to not crazy hot temperatures, back to a more normal summer. So we were at 38 today. It was a beautiful day, gorgeous day today, but we weren't at like 42 or 50 or nothing crazy like that. So despite the fox, it was an absolutely fantastic drive home. And then I did mention that these are some interesting crosses. And I'm kind of holding this over here because I tried to do some internet research on what this is. So it's a Zygopetalum crossed with what's referenced as an NPP. And I looked that up, and NPP stands for Neopabstopedlum. I could not find that much information on a Neopabstopedlum on Wiki or really much of anywhere, but I did find over in Sydney, somebody from a orchid society there knew about them and gave me more information than I could get from Wiki. A Neopabstopedlum is a combination of a Neogarderia, a Pabstia, and a Zygo. So these are some complicated little guys. And I looked up Neopabstopedlum orchids, and there was absolutely nothing on the internet. I looked up Neopabstopedlum orchids, and the wiki had this to say, that there are 5 species of them, and they're from Brazil, and it listed out the 5 species, and that was it. So, anybody out there that knows anything about Neopabstopedlums, please make a comment, because both of these little babies, if they don't die from their fox ordeal, have Neopabstopedlum in them. So these are very complex little super hybrids that we've got going on here that I got for free, and these are going to go into the little trays where I have my other seedlings. And Joey's showing his butt. Joey, Joey, Joey. There's Joey and Happy. Happy. So that is everything I know about Zygos. I've not been growing them that long. I added to my collection by 3 plants by spending about 4 hours driving there and back. But it was a beautiful day, and with the exception of the fox, it would have been an absolutely fantastic day. The ABC Australian Broadcasting Company was playing some really good operas, and it was just such a lovely drive. So, get to know your Zygo. Figure out if it's terrestrial. Figure out, is it an epiphyte? These are all from Brazil or South America. They like it humid. So I'm not sure what we're going to do with the ginormous one over there. It's going to go in the bedroom somewhere. Other than that, I've been storing this one on the top shelf with my Oncidiums, and it seems to be doing just fine and is just happy up there. Again, with the exception of the super hot day at Christmas, and for this to be a cool to warm grower, it took it. It did a lot better. It didn't have any issues at all. It wasn't shriveled. It wasn't nothing after the heat wave. This little thing took those hot, dry days and no issues with it. The fella grew that one outside, but like I said, he's an hour and a half away from here. And when you head towards the east, you get towards the hills, and getting towards the hills, everything starts to get a little bit cooler. So there's a little nice stretch along there just on the ridge of the hills where they grow the wheat and the cattle. And it's quite cool. I was actually cold when I was there, and when I was at home, I was dressed in typical shorts and a t-shirt. And when I was at the 2 places yesterday picking up the items, it was cold. I was chilled. So we'll see how these do, but the aircon is getting a servicing. I bought a new fan for the bedroom to keep air circulating better. I think that I might not have had the deaths that I had better airflow, but I had been relying on the airflow from the ducted air coming out of the roof. The ducts come from the roof, and it had been keeping airflow just fine. But yeah, I learned my lesson, so got myself a fan, and the fan is going. So these little guys are going to go back in the seedlings. This is going to go back in its normal home on the top shelf in the bedroom. That big monster is going to go probably in the kitchen for isolation. I think I'll put it in the office. There's a nice window there. It can get some indirect light, and there's no plants in there, and I can close the door off. So if something that big has bugs, it will have a lot of them. Like I said, I didn't want to repot it yet, mostly because I don't have enough potting media to pot that up with, so I need to go to the nursery to get that done. Thank you guys very much again for watching. Make sure you check out the other channels and their care guides. It may help you in your growing situation. Find someone with a similar climate, similar grow setup, indoors, outdoors, part of both. And are they doing semi-hydro? Are they doing organic? Are they doing inorganic? See who is taking care of these that best matches you, and maybe you can learn something and take better care of your zygos. Or if you want to add to your collection, now you can arm yourself with more information to add this plant to your collection. Supposedly, these particular ones, the Zygopetalum mackii, is supposed to be tough as nails and darn near impossible to kill. So we'll see. Thank you so much again for watching my channel. If you liked the Care Collab, please give the video a thumbs up. A subscribe would be nice.